Welcome, people of the World Wide Web. So this is Cypher Sigma, and this is the movie review for Nosferatu. So yes, anybody who does or doesn't know, this is kind of the classic story of Nosferatu, the vampire lord, retold I think over 100 years since its creation. The film is 2 hours and 12 minutes long and stars an all-star cast of Lily Rose Depp as the main lady, Ellen Hunter, Nicholas Hoult as her husband Thomas, Bill Skarsgård as Count Olok, the vampire in this film, Aaron Taylor-Johnson as Frederick Hardin, brother, and then William Dafoe as Professor Albin. If anybody who hasn't seen the trailer, essentially this is a story of them coming across the vampire. It's very vague. I haven't really seen much of the trailer, so it's essentially the interaction of the Count taking up property in the hometown of Germany where these people are, and then kind of terrorizing the main character's wife for one reason or another. I did enjoy it. There was a few problems I had with it, but we'll get into that when we go into the spoiler warning. So we'll put the spoiler warning up and we'll start. So yep, so this movie starts with quite a nice big house scene, and you have the main lady, Ellen, kind of having a dream of this character, and she's being terrorized, and then she kind of wakes up and it's all a dream. Then you kind of have Ellen and her partner Thomas. They are just newly married. He works for property sellers and stuff, and there is an old house in this German town where they live, and this Count wants to basically own it, but he wants the papers delivered personally. So the boss of this has taken Thomas on and says, you know, I'll make you a partner and stuff like this. If you go and deliver these personally, you'll get money in for a house and everything. So Thomas is like, oh, that's great. But it's a 6-week journey all round, so more or less 3 weeks there and 3 weeks back. His wife starts to kind of have a dream and has kind of premonitions that something bad might happen. She takes a bit of her hair, cuts it off in a locket and gives it to him for safeguarding to remind her that, and she goes and stays with her brother. As we kind of see in the beginning, they have a little party. Thomas then sets off. He has his journey there that seems to be more or less fine until he gets to the town of where this Count is. He has to go up to the castle next day, and he wants to stay with like the indigenous people. They all say all they're saying in their own native tongue, which he doesn't understand, that basically there's an evil presence here, you should stay away. But he says no. He pays double and he sleeps in his room. As he sleeps, the rest of them go out and kind of have a sacrifice to this grave. They go to kill like what they believe is their vampire or something. As this happens, you can kind of have Nicholas Holt's character pops up in the back of the scene, and then they all kind of turn around, and then it kind of Nicholas Hoult wakes up in his bed, mud all over his shoes, but everybody's gone. His horse is gone. He's the only one in this little village. Very, very strange. He then has to walk more or less all the way up to the castle. As he's most of the way there, a horse and carriage come down this dark route, kind of turn to one side, and he goes to get in. Now I must admit, I want to add this scene where he's walking and a horse carriage comes to it, and that is so beautifully shot. There are scenes like this, and I must commend the director on that it's very, very nicely shot of this, very nice looking, very well acted. But anyway, so he's taken to the castle. He meets the Count, and the Count says, obviously he's late, and he says, you know, like his horse is gone, there isn't a lot he can do. And then as there's kind of a confrontation, you realise that Count Olok is kind of manipulating him to stay there. And then as the days go by, he's not allowed to leave. He's kind of locked in there. You see kind of dogs turn up. He's finding these bite marks on his chest. And there's all, what the hell's going on? Obviously, then we switch back to Ellen, and she's very worried. She's not heard from Thomas. Thomas is supposed to write each day. This hasn't happened. And as you have a bit of back and forth in between this, Count Olok comes across the medallion with his wife's hair, smells it, and then kind of enchants her. At this point, she then starts getting ill and having these night terrors, and is really, really disturbed. This is when Aaron Taylor-Johnson's character goes and he has a professor or a doctor who's looking after his wife, who then goes back to this Professor Albin, the William Dafoe character, and this is where he's brought into it, and he believes in the supernatural, the unnatural forces, and this is where he comes across and says, look, something's possessed her, I don't know what, and he starts looking into stuff. During this time, Thomas manages to one night escape from the castle. He falls into the river from one of the castle towers, gets washed away, and then he's found by a nurse, and they manage to partly nurse him to health. When he's kind of not ready, he leaves to go back to Ellen. And this is kind of where that story, why that's going on. The Count Olok is basically puts his body within a coffin, puts it on a boat, and then he's sailing to the town of Germany to basically wreak havoc. As they go along, people start dying. There's a plague of rats and stuff like this, and it's all chaos. And you can see this kind of evil force coming its way. Thomas then turns up. He is still very ill. He is kind of sent back to Ellen's brother-in-law, Aaron Taylor's house. He kind of has them all there, and this is where they start to realise that there is some evil force coming to them. Count Olog manages to arrive in the town. His ship crashes into the pier after he's more or less killed everybody. All these rats are there, and basically this massive plague starts spreading across. People are dying and sick and everything like that. Aaron Taylor Johnson, where his house is, Ellen one night is visited by Count Olok and said basically she will be terrorised in 3 days if she doesn't give herself to him in 3 days, that basically everyone will die. Ellen comes to the realisation that that's happened, because after that's the first night she is visited. The second night, her brother's wife and 2 kids are all killed. So basically everyone then goes on a witch hunt to try and find the Count Olok and burn him down with her husband. They go to where his coffin is, and they've read that literally if you burn the coffin and he has nowhere to sleep, they believe that will fix it. This is in between Nicholas Holt's character's boss. You find that he's kind of a slave of that guy, but I won't go too much into that. Essentially, they all go on the third night to terrorise it. They don't. While that's happening, the Count comes to Ellen in their room. They kind of have this weird ritual sex, and what she does is just traps him there, keeps drinking her blood until basically she and him die in the morning in each other's arms. As Thomas returns, the sun comes up. The end. So what did I think of this movie? So as I've said, like, how this was shot is very, very beautiful. There are some amazingly beautiful scenes in there, and obviously I think this is the director who did The Northman, so I look forward to going to that movie. For me, it felt a little long near the end. It felt a little like I was a bit like, I really hope this is end. I did not like the ending. Him kind of bewitching her, but then she bewitching him, and him staying of this creature that's probably been around hundreds of years who sucks the blood. I think he would know when light's coming and when not to do it. And yeah, and just the whole kind of that whole aspect of it I didn't like. Acting all round was brilliant. Count Olog, I couldn't even tell it was Bill Skarsgård, even though the character he portrays, if anybody has seen the Kingsman movie and Rhys Ifans' character, I see a lot of similarities with their characters, their voices and stuff like this. I don't think that was intentional, but unfortunately that was an image that kind of got into my head. And as I say, I did enjoy it. I give it a 6.5 out of 10. I say for me, it is very beautifully shot. The acting is really, really good across the board. I thought I didn't have any complaints with anyone, but for me, there is the ending of stuff that didn't work for me. I say it felt a little long for me, and because it was drawn out, it did get it felt a little bit boring near the end. And I must admit, horror isn't my go-to, so this kind of movie, if you're a horror fan, maybe you would really, really love this, and this is perfectly well for me. I'm not the biggest horror fan, so there is that aspect to consider. But I enjoyed it across the board. Have you seen this movie? Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. I've been Soft Signal Screen Time, and I shall see you in the next one.